Hello, welcome to More Than Meets the DIY, a virtual education series presented by the Pacific Northwest chapter of the Recording Academy and Sonnet Guild Seattle. My name is Jessica Toon, and I'm the Executive Director of the Recording Academy's Pacific Northwest chapter. We'll be hosting a new session in this series on the first Tuesday of each month through November, featuring a specific topic sourced by feedback from our music community. This is our third installment of the series, and if you want to check out the first two, they're posted on our YouTube account. Just search for name @GrammyPro or search Recording Academy membership. If you're a touring artist or are looking to go out on the road, you'll want to join us for next month's session on July 1st. But today we're diving into sync licensing. Simply put, getting paid for the use of your copyrighted music in film, TV, ads, and video games. Sync royalties are becoming an increasingly meaningful source of revenue for artists and rights holders. So joining me for this conversation today are Duddy Brown, an executive music producer at global sync agency AudioSocket, and Shanice Antonia, an artist with a successful career writing and releasing music, as well as writing for sync and landing big national placements. Hi, both of you. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello,
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So I'll let you both just sort of introduce yourselves. Duddy, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I'm a composer. I'm an executive producer. I've done music for film and television now for over a decade. I've had placements on pretty much every network you can think of, most of the biggest brands. I've also used my stuff, anything from the Super Bowl to big bank commercials. Me and Shanice actually just got very recently a Chase Bank commercial, gaming, Fortnite, Logitech, all the big brands. It's been a really fun, wild ride, and yeah, just here to talk about it.
Awesome. Thank you. Shanice?
Yeah, so we just got the Chase commercial. Daddy and I have been working together since 2018, 2019. I've had a couple other placements on like Impact Atlanta, Impact New York. I'm an artist myself. I just released my first album finally, February 23rd. It's called Sweet and Sour. Yes, I've been writing music and joining camps and writing for other artists for a long time, over 15 years, long time. Singing my whole life. I'm an actress as well. I vocal produced and wrote my whole album, as well as some other syncs that we've landed. And yeah, I'm excited to keep going. We're just getting started.
Well, congrats on your new record and congrats on that big placement to both of you. Part of why we wanted to talk to you both is because you're collaborators, and I think that that's really interesting, and we'll sort of get into that a little bit later. But Duddy, I wanted to kick it off just sort of talking about sync broadly. So a lot of people are starting to see a path to earning potential by getting music synced and want to get into it, but don't know where to start and struggle writing to creative brief versus their artistic self-expression. What, in your perspective, what is your perspective, I guess, in writing something for someone else or for a commercial as opposed to expressing your point of view as an artist?
Great question. No, I honestly would say that there's a lot of I don't know, there's a lot of nerves when you first start writing to brief too, because you're like, usually the first briefs that come across your desk are you're like, oh my God, $50,000 or $100,000 for this crazy brief, and you wanna make something great, and then you see what you actually have to write, and you're like, I've never done weird Southern rock with big claps, and like I'm not that type of a singer, and I don't, whatever it is, the brief, and you start to go, well, I don't even know if I like this, So I think it, a big help that actually something my dad taught me about just like most things in general is don't really think about what's going to make the song good so much or anything like that, but think about what's going to be useful. So when you're writing to a brief, it could be for like a spot. You might also be writing to a brief for a catalog album, which is something that Shanice and I are doing more and more of because we are learning to just put, or put the music out there and it'll work for you in the background, versus, shoot your shot at something that, you may end up writing something very specific that's not as reusable for something else. But regardless, you're writing to brief. I think the biggest thing is to get yourself into a place where you can be objective about whether I like this kind of music or not. I'm making something useful or not useful versus like, oh, this is good music or bad music. Everybody has a different perspective on what makes music good or bad. Um, so yeah, I mean, when you break it down to useful, that's pretty objective. You can kind of go through down a checklist more or less of like, okay, aside from this sounding authentic and good, there's kind of a checklist of things that you can do because you're making music for an editor, essentially. And they need a set of tools in order to tell their story on screen. All sync music is pretty much like this. All film and TV music is pretty much like this. You're not going to be writing a song for the purpose of that song. If you're writing for DSPs and I think a lot of people involved with the Grammy are like writing their artist projects, you're structuring a song in a certain way strategically to make that, the end result, the end user is listening to the music. And in TV, the end user is actually the person telling their own story on screen, and what we're providing is essentially just an ingredient on the dish rather than the whole dish. So I always think about, okay, the person that's going to use this is going to be an editor, and I need to get this to the editor. So to get this to the editor, that means I need to get past the music supervisor. And the music supervisor is there going, they're essentially, I mean, they have a lot of creative input in certain scenarios, and in other scenarios, not so much. They're essentially screening. Um, I've seen someone supervising a project listen to over 400 tracks in less than an hour, and I did some quick math before. This is like about 3 seconds per listen, which is obviously impossible to listen to an entire song in 3 seconds and like really get a feel for it. But what they're doing is very visually listening. So she would go through and like look at the waveform. And that's something I learned like very important very early on, is that if my song doesn't look useful to the editor, because they're going to look at the shape of your actual waveform. And if it doesn't look useful, they're probably not even going to listen to it. They're just like, okay, so what's not useful? A big brick. If we're telling a story, we want to take you on a journey, right? A story is told in a few acts, 3 acts usually. So that usually has like a beginning, a build to something, and a thematic climax. Those are kind of the main parts of every story. And your song should have those ingredients baked in. Doesn't have to be in that order, but when as a music supervisor, if they're looking at your waveform and they see, oh, this is a bigger section. Oh, this is a smaller section. Oh, there's a break right there. That's nice. That'll be easy for the editor to chop right there in case they want to use that section only or anything like that. So you want to make sure that right away visually your pitch is on point. You don't slam it with a limiter so hard that it looks like a brick because they're just going to throw it in and they're literally just going to go, I don't have time to check this. There's so many people gunning for your position. You need to look good right away. Um, Other things that they'll look for is like if that waveform looks a little bit more dense at the end. I should be able to see your sting out, which is your boom. We want to ring out. They don't do the classic fade in sync, or anything like that. That would look silly on screen. So an ending that's going to lend itself to on-screen storytelling. Um, and if you have those things, then they're probably going to actually listen to your song. And now we get to the next thing, which is, are we even on brief? Did I give them what they're asking for? Not what I felt like writing that day or what oh, I have this other song that I already wrote that I think would be great for this brand. It's like, no, the brand knows what they want. If they don't know what they want, which happens, then it's a total crapshoot, and you probably don't want to pitch for it anyways. So look in that brief. If they have a distinct, oh, we're looking for this, it's very distinct. You can tell that they know what they want. Those are the easier ones to hit. If they are kind of all over the place and wishy-washy, they're probably just gonna have 50 to 80 people pitch and no one's gonna get it, and they're gonna go use a different library because they didn't get what they wanted. And it, whose fault that is doesn't matter. So just be careful with your time when it comes to that. That said, if the brief is concise and clear, make sure that you're on that brief. And I kind of equate that to, like if you're going into a club or a nice restaurant or something, you need to be like dressed to attend that social event. If you show up in rags, they're probably not going to let you in, or at least not as soon as the other people who show up in a tux, right? So, yeah, matching that brief. So your waveform looks good. You match the brief. You're probably going to get forwarded into, at least put into a bin where the editors can use your stuff, or where the bigger decision makers can, or if the music supervisor really likes your thing, they might bookmark and say, like, I really think that I really think that this track right here would be a good look, on screen for what we're doing. It might even be a little left of center, but I think this is going to actually be good. So right away, you're on brief. One thing that will trip you up here now that you're on brief, they might start editing. They might start editing their piece of the show to your song. It could be a show, it could be a commercial, it could be a promo, it can be a web video, it can be anything. It can be so many different things, but they're going to start editing to it. And one thing that will trip you up is changing your mood too much. If you have a song that goes from really sad to really happy, and the brief was like, okay, we need a happy, yeah, or like a big scene opener for Real Housewives, and we're like coming into everybody's taking a trip to wherever, and it's like we need a tropical scene opener that's like, big and fun, and then your track changes moods halfway through. Hopefully the fun and happy part was like long enough for them, but they're probably not going to use that, because what do? They show like sweeping views that you hear the vocal come in, and they're showing everybody getting off the jet or whatever is happening in the scene. You're hearing Shanice sing it, and then they're going to switch to the instrumental version, or maybe the underscore version. They're going to take her voice out, and then you're going to see a talking head on screen, right? They're going to get rid of the voice, because if you hear two voices, it's hard to focus on. So they're going to get rid of that. Dialogue is going to start happening, but they're going to still keep the song going. So you need enough runway for them to like open this scene and really get it moving fast, but stay in that mood. Now, dynamically, you're going to want to shift down at a point in the song. They might like take your down part and move it left or right as editors, but you're going to want a shift down where you're going to remove some of, or a lot of, the tonal content, and just kind of bring it back a little bit. But at the same time, we're not going to do like a whole new chord change or a whole new chord structure where the mood and feeling changes. So we're changing the energy, but not the emotion. That's the key part right there. That way they've got enough runway, because if they want to change emotion, they've got a whole folder absolutely chock full of amazing other songs that are already tagged like, oh, emotional, or like, oh, tension cue, or whatever it is that they need next. So keep it all one thing, and don't worry about like, oh, I can get so many different syncs with like one thing if it changes all these things. No, just make more songs. Have more songs. The more songs you have, the more syncs you're gonna get. Just keep them concise. We're not changing mood here. Um, is the message of the song open-ended? It's good to have a clear, concise feeling to your lyrics, but at the same time, if you are too visual, or if you're too absolutely distinct about what the song is about, it's only gonna work over a certain type of scene. That's not bad necessarily, because sometimes they absolutely need something, but if it's too on the nose, if you're too descriptive, then it won't work for anything. Because if what is happening in the song is not happening on screen, and Shanice is singing about a red barn or a red house, and there's no red house on screen, it's very hard to like follow mentally. Like, okay, this music is telling me to picture something, and then I'm looking at something else. It's confusing, and at the same time, if what is on screen is a red house and she's singing about a red house, it's too on the nose. It's a little corny. So keep imagery out. Try and keep imagery out. Try and keep really specific scenarios, um, conversational pieces. Like if you're writing about, you said, very specific descriptive things that come from your life. It's like, no, summarize those, generalize those so that it works more across multiple scenes, multiple different usages, and you're gonna get better royalties because your vocals will get used more.
Can I interject and just ask a question here to Shanice too? I'm curious, when you are collaborating, I imagine you're both writing lyrics together. And a lot of, when people and artists are writing for their art, they're storytelling, right? And so when you're talking about sort of scale back the storytelling, scale all of that back, how do you get there? How do you get to a place where you can sort of make it more broad while still being able to project emotion?
It's really, honestly, it comes down to what's composed kind of before I get there. So Duddy's really good about, like he's describing right now, like building the world first musically based off the emotion or whatever the brief is asking for, like energy wise. And then I come in and say, a lot of times Duddy will have it, like he'll have it written, so I don't have to lend too much like lyrically, and like he's painted the picture enough where I understand and I get it. Other times, I will add, but when he has it already painted out, I just add to that based off of what he's built already. And like I said, that's typically the world around with the music sonically, how it feels, and um, depending on what it is, he's really good at guiding also with like guiding me into what the emotion is, like with what he's felt once he's created the music to it. So we'll come up with characters and he'll say, give me this person or give me, that's just the way that I understand. He knows feeling out and with our working and our friendship and our relationship, he knows how to articulate what it is that we need to bring out for the song. So it's just being receptive of that and trying it a couple of different ways, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, you're so good at it too, Shanice. I mean, you're able to like hone in on that feeling. And, when we're writing, uh, and especially we're doing so much more catalog now. It's like, hey, we, we imagine what this could be for. Like, hey, let's write scene openers today, and then we're
Yeah,
gonna, and then we think about what that feeling is or imagine the scene or watch other scenes and just
yeah,
say like, oh, that's really cool. They didn't even use lyrics right there. We just do a big O section here because, you know, or
yeah,
what is the feeling here? And then try and figure out how we can uniquely but vaguely depict that together.
yeah.
I
A
want to
lot of
come
times,
back to, oh, sorry, I was just going to say, I want to come back to the getting in character and the world building, because I think that's really interesting and really helpful. But before we do that, Duddy, I think you were sort of going through some of the key elements that make tracks useful on screen, inspired and useful. So I want to give you the opportunity to kind of get through some of those, and then we can get into the character and world building.
Totally. Yeah. Um, just a couple other check marks to just make sure you're checking these boxes is, when they're editing with your music, you're making this easy for them to do. So do your melodies breathe? Are you going da 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 da, or are you going da 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 rest? Da 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 da. Like then they're like, okay, they can say this thing, chop, next, because they're probably not going to use your whole song anyways. So making it editable, you're gonna, make their life easier. Get these editors home to their families sooner, and you've done your job. Yeah, just make it easy for them. Um, Dynamically, melodically, and rhythmically, It's good to evolve. Don't give them the same verse too. If your verse one is da na 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 na, give them at least a harmony on the second one. Add something special because otherwise, they can just use verse one. If it's like, we need something else here. So we're not building this like a pop song where it's like, oh, this whole thing is a journey. We're giving them ingredients. Hey, do you need this energy level for your scene? Do you need this energy level for your scene? Okay, we think you're gonna bring it down here, but you have the freedom to chop and move this stuff around. Make that easy and make your song full of options, full of toolkits. Maybe they don't need a big happy song for the scene that is as big as your chorus, but the verse works great and it's the same chords. So it's smaller there, and verse two is a little bit bigger. They can evolve, they can go from verse one to verse two, still evolve and tell a story without having to use your chorus, which was too big for the scene. So give those options. Um, Lyrics, providing an ingredient and a tone without stealing the show. I think we kind of went over that. The Red House, it's too much. You want to talk about a feeling that's very vague versus a very descriptive thing, because you're not telling the story. You're just giving sounds and emotions for someone else to tell the story with. um we also talked about non-lyrical vocals, but strategically that's something that works a lot because a vocal makes something sound more expensive. It just sounds more real. It sounds like an artist versus just a crappy library track. And so, yet sometimes lyrics just steal, they just take away from the screen. Having a big gang vocal, just O section or ah section, or something like silly, boom, clap, yeah, 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 haze, all these stupid things with a whole bunch of people. It feels good. It feels big. It feels together. It feels expensive, but you're not stealing from what's happening visually. You're not taking away and distracting lyrically. I don't know how many songwriters versus producers, like composers, are actually gonna watch this, but one thing to make sure that you're also doing, not just songwriting wise, but production wise, is building in edit points. You want to make sure that your song comes to a stop between each section and then has like a fill that's somewhat visual, rather than just like going from I'm in my chorus, and then I'm in my verse a little bit quieter. It's like da 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 ba, bring me back, like something that would look cool. Okay, cool. I can, as an editor, I get an idea. I'm gonna make it the screen flash at you and then come back, and then like we're in this next thing, something that's fun to edit to, that also gives them the option to chop right there. Oh, the song could start right here, because when you look at something on screen, you don't know if you're listening to the beginning of the song or not. Um, yeah, structure it for the scene, not for the song. Kind of already covered that, but again, we're not making songs necessarily for people to listen to on Spotify. So we're structuring this so that every part, while being in the same emotion, has a different dynamic content and a somewhat different hue to it, so that it's useful across more needs for that same feeling. And that's kind of like my checklist for every song. Aside from being on brief and getting, creative with that, and how to do that and making sure it sounds absolutely killer. Um, yeah, I go through that checklist for every single song. Just make sure it works.
And I love you describing it as useful and inspired. And I think, I have heard so many presentations and conversations about sync, and never has anyone talked about what the waveform actually looks like. And that's just a super interesting insight. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Shanice, I wanted to back up a little bit and kind of talk about your journey into this. I'm starting to see some questions in the chat come up from our audience too, who haven't had any placements yet, or who are just looking to get into sync. And so, I tend to also hear from a lot of young artists who see potential in sync and have seen some of their friends starting to make money, but they feel this tension between sort of writing for commercial and writing and performing what they would consider their personal art. You've found success in both. Can you talk a little bit about that journey, what challenges you had to overcome as a creator and as an emotive person in developing the skill set to be able to sort of bifurcate those two parts of yourself?
Yes, it's definitely been a journey. So none of you are alone. When Duddy and I started out, I definitely found it difficult to separate like me as an artist and just the general like emotion that I'm coming in and hey, just sing this and give this and or yeah, just figuring out how to like still be put myself into it because that's essentially what you want to do. You want to bring what you have um, into this whatever it may be for commercial for TV because it's still you. There are opportunities like there's Duddy's presented before, like when I was battling with that, he's like, well, we can use an alias. That's an option, but ultimately, it's still you putting you into the work. It's kind of like that. He used a good example because I act as well, and his example he used yesterday is when we go to the movies, we don't go to see, you know, we don't go to see these characters just as the character. Or what did you say, Duddy? We don't go to see the
Yep.
actors to see the actors or just the characters. We're seeing what they're bringing to that character.
Yeah.
So once like I said, it's been a journey, but I found good balance and more comfortability with putting myself into whatever it is, whatever brief that we get, because it still is me. And being that I am an actress and I've honed in on my craft musically and theatrically, I can put the two together. Not that you have to be an actor to do this, but it definitely helps. Like I mentioned before, like, well, if I am struggling with conveying the emotion vocally, right? Daddy will be like, give me this character, maybe that'll work. Like he'll throw things at me that might help me find the emotion if we can't find it, if I'm struggling with it. But yeah, and still making it being okay with it being me and not sounding like some robotic like, oh, we're doing something for Mattel. I remember we were doing something for Mattel, and we were like, do the smokers this the idea in my head. He'll say, give me this like a sassy lady with a cigarette that's on the street, and whatever that is in my mind, I'll sing it that way, just off of him saying that. And if if it didn't work the first time I do it, we'll keep going at it. And um, yeah, it's still the idea is that it's be yourself, bring yourself into all of this, and it just makes the job a lot easier. And I have found that it has gotten way easier. Like Duddy and I bang out songs. I can't even say and how fast. In 30 minutes, we'll do like 2 or 3 songs in an hour, 2 or 3 songs, because I found that just being myself and putting myself into it is the best way. And I think back to when I was struggling, and it took more time because I'm like, oh, I have to figure out how to do this so it's not me, but it's what they want for the brief. And it's just so much better when I just do me. And make sure you're working with a producer or a composer like Duddy that invites you to be yourself, that you can be yourself with, because now it's like I could sing like, so I love ad-libbing harmonies, and Duddy knows this. So when we have to get to the big O moment or like just give them something for this section, he'll just let me go off and do my thing. And I could mess up. I could hit a note that I know I'm like, oh my God, that sounded horrible. It's like, no, it's perfect. It's great. And if I want to do another one for safety, he'll let me do that. He gives me the freedom to do that and the room to do that. But he still gives me the room to not judge myself and just to be open and to be myself and bring that into whatever brief we get.
I think that's super interesting. So you are sort of talking about world building and these characters, but it's like bringing your point of view on what that character, how that character lives and breathes in the world based on your lived experiences in the world, right? So there is like this through line of authenticity of, if you were telling your own story, you might bring some of those same things because that's sort of your lens on the world. So I think that's super interesting to sort of think about it as like, I love the image of, the woman smoking a cigarette, fancy Parisian lady, right? And like, I know what that means to me, and it means something really different to you. And it's, maybe Audrey Hepburn to someone else. But how cool to sort of be able to weave that into then your authentic self and bringing yourself to the mic. And I imagine that makes you feel a little more comfortable and sort of gives you permission to sort of play and take that risk, but it also doesn't feel inauthentic to you. So I think that's really a cool way to approach it. Duddy, I'm curious from the composer standpoint, Shanice is describing about getting into character. How does that apply to what you're doing on your side?
Yeah, you know, one time I was asking for some character and I don't even remember what it was. But I remember Shanice kind of like thinking out loud. She's like, what would I be like if I was that person? You know? Because you're not, but if you had a different life, you could possibly be this singer, like, you know, when we were writing, I don't know how many songs we did for the Impact, but we did too many. And we were just like, okay, this stuff has to be a little bit ratchet. Like we gotta be like a little bit like what would you know, and that's what I love about you is you're able to go like, what would I actually be like if this was what type of music I wanted to make? What would I actually do? And you can honestly be that and give that. And that's the same with the music. Like, you know, I'm not, I'm making so many different kinds of music every day for so many different spots. I don't wake up one day and be like, oh, I want to make a house track for Logitech video. I just want to, but I need to be able to go like, okay, if this was my favorite kind of music, what would I make it like? What would I do? That would just be how I would approach this. How would I love this music? How would this sound like if I loved it so much? And then just go for it. Don't judge yourself because there's so much of that in the beginning. You're going like, I mean, music is like a social cue kind of too, which is it's like a fashion statement, and we often judge ourselves and other people by what they're wearing. So it gets like kind of embarrassing almost to put on new clothes you haven't tried on, you know? You most of us don't try on new clothes in front of like the whole party we're going to that night. We like, okay, we'll try something a little risky in the safety of the dressing room. And then I'm going to bring my best friend and he's going to go like, you look terrible in that, dude. Don't do the cowboy hat, shave that stupid huge mustache, something like that. But like, you know, in music, we need to just jump in film and TV, we have to just jump in and go like, I'm the cowboy tonight. I am that, and whatever that is, I'm just gonna be it. And whoever I am in that tone is gonna come out because they will absolutely hear inauthenticity. And that's the hardest part because in inauthentic music doesn't, I mean, we hear it sometimes on TV and you go like, this is like this, but that's why when me and Shanice pitch, we usually get the spot because we're pitching against a bunch of other people that were like, sync is easy, it's inauthentic, it's all this stuff. So it's like, I mean, we're having a heyday. We're like, yeah, because we're digging for that and we're finding who we are in that. So, and I think at the end of the day, you might find new things out about yourself too. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. I didn't know I dig Nickelback, but that brief was there asking for a Nickelback, and I was able to like get like go, okay, I'm not going to judge what this is. I'm just going to listen and be like, hey, you know what? Like this is a well-produced song, and I'm going to like try and honor that and see if I can beat it in that way, you know?
Mhm. I'm seeing a ton of questions in the chat asking a lot of the same question about how do I get in front of somebody? Do I need a sync agency, and how do I meet them, and how do I get in front of them? And then also, so writing to creative brief, but also selling to catalog. If I already have written songs that I think might be placeable, what do I do with those? How do I get those in front of the right people? Can you guys talk a little bit about the difference between catalog and writing to creative brief and how someone might enter into those relationships and where to find them?
Yeah, totally. Shanice, you want to go or?
Oh, you go. You can start.
Okay. I the way that most people get in is through an agency. It's the smartest way, it's the easiest way, and there's the repping your own catalog is like a huge task that is daunting, and you can already make so many mistakes on that side that are going to screw you up. So have just focusing on the music as a musician is like a really big benefit, especially in the beginning. And as you start to evolve into it, maybe you go like, okay, I have a little private catalog because I've got relationships now from all the jobs that I've won. And when so and so calls me up and says, hey, do you have this? I go, yeah, I got something sitting around like that, but I can, oh, it needs to be a little bit more like whatever, and let me spruce that up and send it to you. But to get there, I would say start with agencies, and just most agencies have submission forms. It takes a long time for a lot of people to get back to you because there are a million people doing it. But if you know someone who's doing something that you like, they might be able to, search your network. Someone might know someone that's like, but eventually, if your music's good and if it sounds really good, you're gonna get in somewhere. There are hundreds, like for you to get zero return emails after a few months, if you've emailed all the agencies, let's look at your music. But until then, like just try and get out there to an agency, because agencies get briefs all the time. And then, it in the beginning they might just be like, we like your stuff. We want to rep it and we'll pitch it as catalog. We'll, if something comes up that we think this song would be great for, we'll pitch it. And if you let them know, hey, I'm very fast, I can turn something around in 24 hours or less. And if you can't, you need to get there before you start asking for creative briefs, because it's not going to happen in most cases. You're not going to get more than 24, 48 hours turnaround. But let them know that you're interested in that stuff. Or if you're not there yet, skill wise, be honest and say like, because the people that are in there like musicians. The people that are in there like creators and they like their job 99% of the time. But you get approached by so many people all the time that like fake stuff has no, like, there's no time for it. That said, if someone was to come to me and say like, I haven't pitched before, but I want to, I'm not saying I can deliver by the deadline, so don't rely on me for this. But if you can send me a brief, I would love to try it. And just send me that type of thing. People be, yeah, there's no harm in that. Sign this NDA so I know that you're not going to go like, and then give it a shot and just try a few, But ultimately, that stuff, it just kind of evolves naturally. But get in the door first with an agency, because they're going to be able to help you with so many dotted I's and crossed T's that you won't even think of in the beginning.
And I'll add too, just because I end up at a lot of these conferences and in rooms with the, sync agency folks, show up to where they are, go to songwriting camps, songwriting festivals, mixers, meet and greets. They're like Duddy said, there are hundreds and hundreds of them across the country. So guaranteed there's some like where you live. So in addition to sending stuff out, show up. I mean, a lot, as we know, this industry is so relational, and someone meets you and is like, oh, hey, we had a cool conversation over a drink. I'm going to think of you because you indicated interest, maybe extend an opportunity to you. So build community, network, show up where the people are. And that'll really help you to get a foot in the door. Shanice, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, same thing. I got into it because my friends knew that I was a musician and artist, and just that I would be good for it. They just thought of me, they would think of me, and were like, you need to connect with this person. And Daddy and I met through a mutual friend who's a songwriter as well, and literally hit the ground running immediately. So trust your connections, trust your friends. Make sure you have good people around you that are doing what you want to do, or at least like you said, get in the rooms where they are doing what you want to do. Ask questions, put yourself out there. And how else? The agencies are good, but again, just keep connecting with people, network across. Don't always try to network up. You can always look up music supervisors, because like Duddy said, being prepared as a composer and musician, that's important too, because before I had my friends connecting me with people that they trusted me with, I had music supervisors asking me for music, like, hey, I have, I'm doing this show. Do you have music for this? And I didn't have the catalog and the music for it. That for whatever brief that they were asking for. I didn't have all the ratchet music that they needed, or definitely not what we've created over time. So just make sure you're prepared. Um, if you're not prepared, get in the rooms with these people again and find out what they're looking for so you could practice, get prepared, like Duddy said.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think you nailed that. It's like and and there's also remember that people like to help. People, if you get in there right away, I'm talking mostly for the people that are asking like, hey, how do I even get into this? Like if you get in there, if you go to one of these events and you're talking like what's going on, it's going to be really easy to tell that you don't. It's easy to just be like, I've never had a sync. What do I do? And then someone like Shanice or I will be like, oh, totally, I remember that too. I remember how I got into sync was insane. I thought it was a scam. Literally, that's why I thought someone was trying to scam me. And I had a family member be like, that's not a scam, that's a sync agency. But like, yeah, yeah, just get out there and just be like, be humble, be you. No one's gonna judge you. Everybody starts somewhere, and everybody in this industry has started somewhere. So yeah.
And some of the craziest places too, also, just so you know. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So when you're saying like sometimes you need to turn around from a brief like really quickly, like 24 hours, what does that output look like? Is it rough demo? Like what are you submitting in those cases?
A fully mixed, mastered, beautiful composition. And that is, I mean, that was something Jen at AudioSocket, unbeknownst to her, actually taught me years ago because she was, at the company, we had so much to tackle. And we started talking about imperfect action because we had some big changes that were looming that we needed to make to stay relevant and to compete. And it felt so daunting. So we were like, just start, you know? And I kind of applied that to music, just start, because as good as you can get it in 24 hours is how good you are. It's not, you aren't how good you can, you are not how good you can get the song in 3 months. You're how good you can get the song in 24 hours. So work for 24 hours if you have to get that as awesome. In the beginning, we're banging these out like Shanice said, like we get something done in a couple hours now because we've just done this and we know our tools and we know how to do this. But in the beginning, you're like, holy crap, how am I going to do this? And it's really daunting, but just do it and know that your next song is your best song. And what you're practicing is not what you're polishing when you work like that is not the song itself, but you're polishing your skill set to bring a song farther in less time. So it takes a lot of tries when you approach it that way, but every time you get faster, you overthink less and you polish your ability to get there faster. And it's your next song is your best song, and you're only as good as you can make the song in 24 hours when it comes to pitching for sync.
Um, so based on the questions we're getting, I think there's a lot of people who either haven't had, or who are just looking to dip their toe in, haven't had placements yet, or have had, a piece of original music, but they haven't written to a brief yet. So I'm curious, and I'll aim this at both of you. Shanice, maybe go first. What advice would you give yourself now when you were just starting out? Like, what do you wish you knew? What do you wish someone had told you when you first started?
Kind of what I learned, like what I told myself over time, because um, the friends that did connect me to Daddy, who was the first person I really like consistently was doing sync stuff with, was just keep at it and put myself, like I said before, put yourself in it. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. And like Daddy said, you're literally sharpening your skill. You can't go wrong. What's the saying with like, is it three putting in the times like 3,000 hours or something like that? Or just treat it like a job. Treat it like a job and don't give up, but stay consistent. Consistency, persistence. We had taken on a project a couple years ago that needed hip hop ratchet stuff, and it was a challenge because our turnaround time was crazy, and it was like Duddy brought a group of us, a group of his friends and people that he's worked with together, and like kind of broke us off into groups and with who would work well. And I got to work with each composer and producer, which was great. But I had to like, we had maybe a week or two, I think, maybe a week, maybe less than that, I think.
We did
So
like 100 songs in a week, right? With the
yes,
team. That was insane. That was really fun and
yeah,
crazy. Couldn't
I
believe what we
think
were getting either.
we were, but I definitely we had one Zoom call together, and I was like, I was kind of sweating a little bit. I was like, oh my goodness. And the daddy's like, okay, Shanice, you're gonna go here, 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 here with us. You can do this. I knew I could do it though. I knew I could do it. It just was like, okay. Any one of us could have easily been like, yeah, no, yeah, that's too much. But everyone was up for the challenge. And for me, I was like, I took on that challenge. You can't be scared of taking on the challenge either, whatever it may be, because again, you're sharpening your skills no matter what. Whether you do 100 songs, you don't get one placement, so what? You sharpened your skills. I met with a couple of producers. One of them, I did, and I might not have known that I was able to do this had I been up for this challenge or been put into this fire like this. I wrote 5 songs that I remember 5 songs that day in like an hour. In like an hour. Full songs, like full verses, rap, and they were rap songs. And I do rap, I do write raps, and I write everything, but yeah, and stuff came out of me, even know I was able to do, like, you're introducing yourself to yourself by being yourself. You're just showing yourself more of who you are and building your skill and learning yourself. Yeah. That's what I would have told my. Oh, no.
What about you, Duddy?
I mean, that is so interesting. I mean, what did you say? I want that quoted. You're introducing yourself to yourself by being yourself. That's so, but I mean, I relate to that because it's like when you're in a hurry, you don't have time to go like you're like, okay, we got to get this job done. We said we could do it. So you just are not overthinking and you kind of like stuff can just come out of you that you're like, okay, I don't have time to judge it. And later you go back and you're like, okay, is it on brief? Cool, it's going in, you know? And later you come back, like, I like that. That's awesome. How did I do that? But I mean, what I would tell myself getting into this is just just write more, just do more. I didn't start really excelling in this until I had like 1,000 songs out there working. And I know that sounds like a crazy amount of songs. And when you start, you're like, I'm writing a song every like 5 days or 2 days that's like not even finished, you know, but like finish it and just get to the next thing because if you really want to do sync, you can do it. There's a clear path to it, and it's all just about sharpening your skill set. And the sharper you become, the more successful you be at it. And it is linear. Like it's a very like the equation is very simple. Like hard work over time and consistency will pay off, and you'll get better at it. And don't worry about your first 100 songs. Just write them, get them out of the way, so you can start. You can
I'm
do that in
curious.
100 days.
I'm curious, kind of going back to working with an agency, are they generally, like based on your experience and what you know, are they generally exclusive relationships, or can an artist work with multiple agencies to work with on getting placements?
Oh, most agencies are not going to be at least exclusive to you. So hey, she's back.
I'm back.
Where
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, so like, Shanice could have songs at AudioSocket, she could have songs at Universal, she could have songs at Marmoset, she could have songs at Glow. The songs generally at some of these places offer non-exclusive agreements, some of them don't. I'd put the songs exclusive with them just because it's easier to keep track of. You in the rare case that two agencies pitch for the same thing and then they buy it from the one, it's just easier to manage, um and just know where things are. So I go exclusive. I don't mind going exclusive to the song, but
Right.
obviously not to the person. So it's not like a pub deal where it's like, oh, I only work with Sony now, it's uh that makes sense. That answer the question.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I
Okay.
think that's like one of the biggest questions that people have And I think there's some conflation between publishing and sync and royalties and rights management and all of that. So it's really helpful to know. And I'll just reiterate, I think what you said is you don't have to be exclusive to an agency. So you could work with AudioSocket and Marmoset and sort of all of these other agencies to get placements, but perhaps it's easier to go exclusive on a particular song. Obviously, you're going to get a specific brief from a specific agency, but you can really, and when we're talking about networking and putting yourself out there and submitting, you can submit across the board and you don't have to just choose one and go exclusive.
100%. And
Awesome.
also from the agency perspective, exclusive is more attractive because, I mean, as you think about it, like if you're not exclusive with someone you're dating, you're probably not going to bring them to meet your parents yet, you know? Like in the same way, I'm more interested in taking something we have exclusively to our clients just because I'm prouder of it. I'm like, hey, we have this. No one else has this. Check it out, you know?
Yeah. Cool. Another question I'm getting a lot in the chat is we've talked a lot about creative brief, but there are a lot of people who haven't ever seen a creative brief. So can you describe sort of what components, what someone might imagine they're writing to if they get their first brief?
Yeah, it can be across the board, can it, Shanice?
Yes, yeah. What just popped in mind was the one we did for American Girl doll, and
Uh,
how specific that brief was for the doll that was coming out. And then in comparison to a brief I did, or even the one we did the other day, it probably was less descriptive because it was so different. It was so different. Um, yeah.
yeah, it all depends. I mean, you are at the mercy of there's no universal format for them. So what you can see is just some person typing like, "Hey, I need uplifting songs that work for, you know, like whatever, no funk guitar." And you're like,
Yeah.
that's it? That's all those are the parameters. Those are hard to hit because like uplifting songs without funk guitar. I don't know if this what even style this is. And then some of them are going to be like, we are looking for female vocals in the style of Doja Cat, and we want, you know, specifically this song, we want a feel alike, but not a sound alike, and we need this to be 60 seconds long in total with a 20-second cut and a 15-second cut. You know, it ranges. Some of them are very specific. The more specific, the easier it is to hit it. It's like, you know, it,
Yeah.
it's like you're a chef, you know, if someone says like, I'm hungry, it's like, do you, what do I make
What
for
do
you?
you want?
You know, like if someone sits down and says, I want a gourmet, you know, whatever. I don't know why I can't think of one dish of food right now for this analogy.
Mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese. I
Yeah,
want
mac and
gourmet
cheese.
mac and cheese. I can
Bob's
serve
for
you.
mac and cheese.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't want to give them mac and cheese with crab if they want lobster. So yeah,
totally.
sometimes it'll say it's just, oh, a song with this emotion. It'll give like a description of a scenario of a relationship gone sour, or um like very brief. And then like the American Girl doll one we did was it was like, it was so detailed. It was like, it needs this, it needs trumpets, it needs horns, it needs, use these words, use razzle, use dazzle, use this. Yeah. And so yeah, that one I worked on with Josh, I think that was. But
Yeah.
another one of our composing friends, and we were going kind of going crazy to make sure we got everything that they asked us to put, because sometimes it'll be that like cutthroat, like if you don't use this word, it won't get placed. Like they really want this word in. Or when we did one of the Mattel briefs was um use this word, and we did it, and then they came back and was like, okay, take that word out.
Yeah, they'll come back sometimes and be like, we want to use your song, but we don't want you to say this phrase. It's like your brief asked for us to do that. But
Literally what you asked us for.
they reserve that right. And if they're not like hypocrites or like jerks or anything, they just went like, man, we really wanted that. And then it got on screen and we were like, we were wrong. You know, it's totally It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It can happen to anyone, including us. You know, we try out different synths, we try out different lyrics, all that stuff, and we go, "Oh, we didn't. I thought it needed a Juno 106, and it totally sounds dumb." So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes you'll get critiques and sometimes you won't, and they will surprise you. They will surprise you.
And usually so you submit something, they're interested, they have edits, and then so you get the brief, you turn something around in 24 hours, they send you edits. Is it like you have to drop everything and get to the studio and get it done, or do you have
Sometimes,
another 24 hours usually?
If you
sometimes.
get
How on call does everybody need to be is my ultimate question.
that is a really like it again, it changes from job to job. Sometimes stuff they're they're always going to try and push the ball forward faster and faster and faster because they I don't know what it is. Everybody's always behind. We need this and we needed it yesterday. Some of that also is in preparation because they expect you to be slower than they need you to be. But there are also like hard, this is going to a lot of these people you're pitching to are still pitching to someone else. So
Yeah.
that can be like, if you've got a production house that is making the promo for the new bar rescue or whatever. And this is a company that makes promos. That's like pretty much what they do. And they have their in-house team and they have the job, or they might just be pitching for the job. So they're like, okay, we got it in there, but then they're gonna still pitch their promo against like two or three other ones, or they're pitching against themselves. So they're under a deadline too, and you need to honor that because you're on a team. The second you start, you're on a team and act like a team member. And at the same time, you know, there's usually a little bit of wiggle room for quality. If you go like, hey, I know this was due at noon. I've got a finicky kick drum, and can I get to 12:30? Is that going to screw you up? I totally can pitch this without making my changes, but I've been working on it, and they'll go, you know what? Actually, we'll metadata tag all the other ones, and then we'll give you till 12:30, and yours comes in right at 12:30. We'll get it into the pitch. So there's wiggle room, but hurry, like you're on a
Hmm.
team, and the people pitching your music are on a deadline, and the people they're pitching it to are on a deadline. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. There have been definitely times if it's what you want to do, you're treating this like a job. I will drop because like I do a lot. So knows like, or anyone that asks me is like, they'll be like, "Are you in town? Are you here? Like, where are you in the world?" And I'll be like, "I'm here. I'm doing this, but I can come right now because this is what I want to do." So, and I have faith in the work that we're doing and knowing the turnaround times, and everyone has just respecting everyone's time. The faster we get it in, the sooner we get it done, the more likely it is to place or do whatever it is that we want it to do. So just being at the ready, yeah, it is vital at times, depending
Yeah.
on what they're asking for. So
But you don't have to be able to do that all sounds intense and crazy. And we're also talking about like filling in big bends where we're like writing 5 songs in like an hour or whatever, which is a very specific type of writing, and it's not all like that too. So in the beginning, write useful songs and focus on useful. And remember that you're not going to see every brief the agency gets, and they still are going to pitch your song for those if they've got something great. So if you're not there where you're like, oh, I can turn stuff around really fast yet, like I said, just focus on having catalog that's in there, and the right spot will come along and they'll sync it. It may take a year, it may take 2 years, but if you've got a catalog that's useful, it's going to get used. There's such an appetite for music. So put it in there, put it in an agency, and just keep going. And also, like I said, let them know too. Be like, hey, I don't know if I can hit this deadline, so don't rely on me. But I would like to try. Find someone who can do it. But I would love to just see the briefs and try and write for them. Can I have a shot? People love to help people get started.
I think that's a great final thought to end on, unless Shanice, you have any final thoughts you wanted to share?
um, I did, and it just got away from me. Other than that, I would say just keep going. Don't stop. Oh, here it is. We did the placement we just got with for the Chase commercial. We did that song 5 years ago, and it
Yeah.
just got this big placement 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, and it just got this super big, like, yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal when you just keep going, just keep going. Don't let
Yeah.
anybody tell you to stop.
That's
Do
a
it
really
again.
cool success story, right? Because you and probably emotionally had abandoned that song, and then all of a sudden it like came
Well,
up.
yeah, when you are drilling out the songs and just doing it with the purpose of like sharpening your skill and making things that are useful, like Duddy said, yeah, we make a lot. So I'm like, on to the next. I'm very on to the next. Like, let's do the, and it's also having fun with it. Like Duddy was saying, like, this is your playground. So it doesn't have to be super cutthroat. Yes, meet the briefs, but make it useful, make it good, be prepared, and yeah, just keep going. Just keep going.
Well, thank you so much. I feel like we could go forever. There are lots of questions about AI in the future of sync too. So I'm sorry we didn't get to those, but I feel like we could do a whole nother session on this topic. So thank you both so much for being here today and for your candor. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Our next session in this series will be on Tuesday, July 1st at 5 p.m. Pacific, and we'll be covering the topic of touring. And our partners at Sonic Guild will be hosting that episode. So we look forward to seeing all of you then. And again, thank you so much to Duddy and Shanice for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This was awesome.